Today, I want to talk to you about 7 things that native English speakers don't really say and what you should say instead. That's coming up. What's up, everyone? My name is Wes. This is Interactive English, which is all about helping you guys practice and improve your English skills. Today, I'm going to tell you 7 things that native English speakers we don't really say, but these are things that you may have also learned or have heard when you're studying English in the classroom. I want to tell you what these things are and what you should say instead. What's more common? What do people actually say in everyday conversation? The first one is, it's just a greeting, and that is, how do you do?
How do you do?
How do you do?
This is something that it's a very old greeting. It's very formal. Nobody really uses it anymore. And if you do say this to another person, it's just going to sound a little awkward. It's going to sound a bit peculiar. And they're going to wonder like, wow, I have not heard that greeting in an awful long time. So please stay away from how do you do and use one of these greetings instead. How's it going? How are you? If you want to be a little more informal, just say, what's up?
How's it going?
How are you?
What's up?
So you may be wondering how you can get away from these phrases that people don't really use and learn the vocabulary and expressions that native English speakers actually do say all the time that are very common in everyday English. Well, the way you can do that, the best way to do that is just to get more and more exposure to the language. And a wonderful way to do that is to take some online courses. And a great place to find English courses is at Skillshare. And Skillshare was kind enough to sponsor today's lesson. If you don't know about Skillshare, it is an online learning community with over 25,000 different classes. You can find classes on just about anything, including learning English. There are classes to help you build your vocabulary. There are classes to help you develop your conversation skills. There are classes to teach you even informal expressions and slang. And as I said, this online learning community is very affordable because an annual subscription is less than $10 a month. And right now, Skillshare is offering a great opportunity for all of you because the first 500 people to use the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial. So check out the link in the description if you would like to take some online English classes. Then we have a response to a greeting, and this is something that it's almost like it's become a part of English learning culture. And the response is, I'm fine, thank you. And you? Just don't say this, all right? This is not a proper response when somebody asks you, how are you? First off, it just sounds robotic. Second, in English, it's not common to thank somebody after they ask them, how's it going? If I say, oh, how's it going? And say, oh, I'm good. Thanks for asking. It's not something that happens. So this is not a common occurrence. We don't say it, and neither should you. So if somebody asks you, how's it going? And you respond with, I'm fine, that is perfectly okay. But it's also very common to just tell someone, I'm good or I'm great. Those are also very popular responses.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
How are you?
Good.
And how are you?
I'm great. I am great.
The next one is just a word, and that is shall. And this is just old English because shall is just used with the subject pronouns I and we, just means will. We're talking about the future. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because you will still find this in certain English books today, even though you are not really going to hear this in spoken English. You could also use it as a suggestion with I or we, like, shall we leave a comment? And instead of saying you shall, I'd say you should, because shall replaces should in that case. So again, if you're talking about the future, just use will or be going to. Don't worry about shall. And if you're talking about suggestion, you should. Next is just another single word, and that is whom. Now, whom has just been overtaken by who. Even though, to be grammatically correct, whom is still used. You will find it especially in written English. But again, we're talking about things that people say. So the difference between who and who is used in the subject position and whom is used in the object position.
What's important is that we're having a baby, and it doesn't matter who came on to who.
Whom.
That's right.
The word whom is used most often with questions because when we're talking about the direct object and it's an unknown person, chances are you're asking a question. For example, you could ask, whom should we ask for help? But again, in spoken English, it's more common. People are just going to say, who should we ask for help? Or maybe, whom would you like to speak to? And then if you really want to be grammatically correct, you shouldn't end a sentence with a preposition. You'd have to put it before whom and say, to whom would you like to speak? But this just sounds very old, very, very formal. People don't use it anymore. You're not going to hear somebody say this. They will just say, who would you like to speak to? The next thing that people don't often say, but you might think they do. Take a look at these phrases right here, and I will explain this. I am going to, I do not like. Okay, you're probably looking at this thinking, well, no, wait, people use this all the time. But again, these are things that people don't often say. That's the key word right now, speaking. And if we're talking about spoken English, instead of saying, I am going to the park, somebody's going to say, I'm going to the park. They're going to use the contraction I'm instead of I am. Instead of saying, I do not like green vegetables, I'd say, I don't like green vegetables. Yes, that's true. I don't really like green vegetables. I know I should like them. They're very healthy for you, but yes, I don't like green vegetables. But my point is this. Most of you may be familiar with contractions and you've learned them before, and that's great. Just keep that in mind when you're speaking and you're having a conversation. It is so much more common to use contractions instead of the full form. It's also very useful for your listening comprehension because you are going to hear contractions as well. And you should be able to identify these words quickly and not have to think much about them. So contractions, very, very common. This is what people say. Another phrase that people don't really say, or at least it's a question, and they don't ask this question as often as you might think. And that is just, how's the weather? So the reason why I chose this is because when you're learning English vocabulary, especially as a beginner, vocabulary about the weather is some of the first things that people learn. You want to be able to talk about the weather. But at the same time, people don't often just have random conversations about the weather. If there is extreme weather, for example, if it's snowing or it's really hot, then yeah, or it's raining a lot, then people might talk more about the weather. But this question, when it comes to learning English, is more about practicing English than it is about practical English, because I don't know when the last time I just asked somebody, how's the weather? It's not something that you're going to go out and you're going to talk to people and meet people and you're just going to start talking about the weather automatically.
I said to him, how's the weather in Hawaii? And he said, great. It's in the 80s, low humidity.
Doesn't speak English?
Fluently, thank you.
So keep that in mind the next time you meet somebody and you're having a conversation and you're thinking, okay, I don't know what to say next, so I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to talk about the weather. What you should do instead is talk about those things that are interesting to you. What are you interested in? What books are you interested in reading? What activities are you interested in doing? If you talk about those things, then perhaps you can find something in common with that other person. And that's a more natural way to have a conversation than just talking about these artificial topics such as the weather. Then we have an idiom, and that idiom is raining cats and dogs. Now, don't get me wrong, I think it's great to learn idioms, especially for your comprehension, because people use idioms all the time. The reason why I'm putting this up there, raining cats and dogs, is because when you're learning English idioms, I think this is often one of the first idioms that people learn. People learn idioms like piece of cake, something's easy, or they might say, oh, raining cats and dogs, because we love talking about the weather. Even though you would learn this idiom, we don't really say it that much. I just say, it's raining hard. I don't really say, well, it's raining cats and dogs. You may hear it from time to time. You may hear it if you're watching a TV show or movie.
Said it was going to rain cats and dogs.
Wow, it is raining cats and dogs out there.
But it's not one that people use often in spoken English. So instead of saying it's raining cats and dogs, just sound a little more fluent like a native speaker and saying, wow, it's raining really hard. Now you know 7 things that we do not say and what you should say instead. And if you found this lesson useful, I want you to write to me in the comments and let me know. And just ask me the question. Just say, how's the weather? All right, I want you to say, how's the weather, if you enjoyed this lesson and found it useful, and I will respond to you and I will tell you what the weather is like, and we will have that artificial conversation that you may not have with other people in spoken English. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button down below, and as always, I will see you next time.